Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into a massive shift that's happening inside CPA firms. Tax season has always been a marathon, but lately it feels like the whole race has changed. So, how are the smart firms adapting? Not just to get by, but to actually get ahead. Let's get into it. Let's just start with a question that I bet is going to hit close to home for a lot of you firm leaders out there. Your firm is growing. You're bringing in new clients. You're doing more complex work. But it all just feels stressful, right? So why is that? The answer might not be what you're thinking. And here's the thing. The pressure you're feeling, it's not just about keeping up with a few new regulations. Nope, it's way deeper than that. Tax reform is forcing a complete overhaul of how a CPA firm has to operate. It's fundamentally changing the engine that makes your business run.
So that brings us to our first big idea, where we're going to unpack the real challenge behind all this friction, and it's something we're calling a widening capacity gap.
Now let's be super clear about this. This has nothing to do with your team's talent. Your people are pros. The problem is a structural one. It's this growing mismatch between what your clients are demanding, which is just exploding, and what your team can realistically deliver. And this slide, it just lays it out perfectly. On one side, client demands are through the roof. More returns, crazier rules, way more questions. And on the other side, your firm's capacity is stretched to the absolute limit with the same teams and the same crazy deadlines. Something's gotta give, right? Okay, so let's move on and see where this pressure really starts to build up. Where's the first place you actually feel it? Where does the system start to show the cracks? Think about this. Before you even think about putting a number on a tax form, there's this mountain of hidden work that clients never, ever see. Every single reform means you're interpreting vague rules, you're redoing all your checklists, you're changing review standards, and this isn't instead of old work, it's just piled right on top. And that brings us right to the bottleneck. All of that hidden work, all that complexity, it all smashes together right at the tax preparation stage. This is where that gap between what's demanded and what you can deliver becomes a real problem, causing delays and just burning out your team. So what's the first line of defense that a lot of firms are using? They turn to a really targeted solution, tax form outsourcing. The idea is pretty simple. You take the high-value, really time-consuming prep work and shift it to a trusted partner. But, and this is so important, your firm keeps 100% control over that final review. And honestly, the relief can be almost instant. All of a sudden, you're seeing faster turnarounds, those frustrating backlogs start to disappear, the work gets more consistent, and maybe most importantly, your own team can finally take a breath. It frees them up to focus on the really high-value review work. But what happens when that first fix isn't quite enough? Well, in our third section, we're going to look at how this tactical move starts to evolve into something much bigger and, frankly, way more powerful. This is the question that really pushes firms to the next level. Sure, relieving the pressure during tax season is great, but what about the other 9 months of the year? What about all the planning and extensions and compliance? Is fixing just one part of the process really solving the core problem? And that's where we see this really cool evolution in strategy. Firms start at step 1, with tax form outsourcing as that quick, targeted fix. But pretty soon, they realize the real game changer is step 2, making a strategic shift to tax function outsourcing. Now you're not just offloading tasks, you're basically extending your entire tax department. This table just lays out the difference perfectly. See, form outsourcing is about surviving the busy season, but function outsourcing, that's about building flexible, scalable capacity that gives you stability all year long. The scope, the goal, the impact, they're totally different. It's the difference between patching a leak and building a whole new, stronger ship. So, how in the world do firms build this kind of flexible capacity when hiring locally is just so difficult? Well, they're looking globally at offshore tax consultants. And we're not talking about random freelancers here. These are dedicated professionals trained specifically in U.S. tax law who become a seamless extension of your team. It gives you access to a talent pool you just can't find down the street. All right, for our final section, let's tie all of this operational stuff to what really matters, winning more business. This is all about turning that internal efficiency into a serious competitive advantage out in the marketplace. Because think about it, when your team isn't drowning in paperwork, the entire client experience gets a major upgrade. You can actually respond to questions quickly. You can offer proactive advice instead of just reacting. You communicate with more confidence. Your relationships stop being just transactional and start becoming truly strategic. Now, you always hear about the technology behind this kind of modern approach, all these buzzwords like AI and automation. And yeah, it can sound pretty complicated, but the reality of how it works is actually much simpler. So here's what that stuff actually does. Automation, it just handles the boring, repetitive tasks for you. NLP, that's just software that helps read and sort documents automatically. And workflow tools, they just make sure everybody on the team knows what to do and when to do it. See, it's all just technology that's there to make the process smoother. Okay, so as we start to wrap this up, I want you to take a second and think about your own firm. Be honest with yourself. Do any of these next signs sound just a little familiar? If your people are consistently working late nights, if you keep having to postpone that high-value advisory work, or if it just feels like every single year is harder than the last, look, those aren't signs that you're failing. They're signs of growth. They're signals that you're outgrowing an old model, and it might be time for a change. And that really brings us to the biggest takeaway here. The goal isn't just to survive tax season anymore. The most successful firms today are building systems that are designed for constant, unpredictable change. They're building for resilience. So I'll leave you with one final question to think about. Take a hard look at how your firm operates today. Is that system built for the way things used to work? Or is it flexible? Is it scalable? And is it truly ready for whatever comes next?